Good morning to all. I will present the ATOM calibration framework, which is a novel method that we are proposing for doing the calibration of robotic and intelligent systems. Um, and an introduction of the presentation is this. First, we will do an introduction where we will talk about the motivation and some related work. Then we will formulate the problem and propose our solution to it. And then finally, we are going to show some results and conclusions. So first, to the introduction. The question is, what are the robots in the future going to look like? Um, what we are seeing is that with the development of more and more complex robotic systems, they are starting to have multiple sensors of multiple modalities mounted on board. So you can see here the example of the PR2, which contains a stereo camera, RGBD camera, a LiDAR, etc. But there are many other examples, such as autonomous vehicles, autonomous cars, AGVs, UAVs, and even intelligent systems and not even robotic systems, such as camera networks, where you have a large bunch of cameras, for example, in a neighborhood or something like this. So this is a problem because typically when we are doing the processing of all this data, we assume that we have an accurate geometrical transformation between all these sensors. And the process by which these transformations are estimated is called sensor calibration, okay? However, okay, so first let's define several variants of sensor calibration because there is not a single one, and many of them have been discussed in the state of the art. So the most common one is sensor-to-sensor calibration, where you have a sensor, two sensors, a pair of sensors, and then you try to calibrate one with respect to the other. The example in the PR2 would be the calibration of the left camera with the right camera, and that calibration would produce a transformation between those two. Then you have another variant of sensor calibration, which would be sensor in motion. This occurs when the sensor is moving throughout the scene and you want to calibrate that sensor with respect to something else. It could be another sensor, as the example of the right camera to the LiDAR that we see there. The right camera would move because it's on top of the robotic head and the head moves around. But it can also be some other more standard variants, examples such as structure for motion, SLAM, or multi-view stereo systems. Finally, we have a third variant, which we call sensor to frame. This sensor to frame variant occurs when you want to calibrate a sensor not with respect to another sensor or another view of the same sensor at another time, but when you want to calibrate a sensor with respect to some coordinate frame. An example that we see there is when we want to calibrate a left camera with respect to the end effector of the manipulator of the robotic system. So all these variants already produce some complexity. So you have a lot of variations and different approaches to solve each of these. And furthermore, you have additional complexity, which comes from the fact that we have multi-sensors. We can have systems with multiple sensors. By multi-sensor, I refer to the cases where we have more than three sensors, three or more sensors. So two is not multi-sensor, it's just a pair-wise approach. And then we also have multimodality. That by that I mean when the sensors are not all of them of the same nature. For example, I don't have only cameras, I mix cameras with LiDARs and this kind of stuff. So this makes the problem of calibration very challenging. And here's an example of why calibration is important. In this case, we are showing you a hand-eye problem. So you have a camera mounted, assembled on the end effector of a manipulator, and we are doing a representation, a volumetric representation, in this case built with an octomap. And the question is, when the robot moves, we can augment this representation because we are seeing more of the scene, because the robot is observing different portions of the scene. But this only makes sense, so you can only create a consistent representation if you actually know the transformation between the camera and the coordinate frame of the end effector. This is a typical sensor to frame calibration problem. although it's also a sensor in motion calibration problem because the sensor is moving around. Okay. Now, if we go into the related work, we can see that there is a lot of literature, a lot of works reported in the state of the art, and for most of the variants that we can come up with. So, for example, with sensor to sensor, we can have different cases according to the modality of the sensor pairs that we choose. For example, RGB to RGB camera is perhaps the most well-known case, but we also have RGB to depth camera, RGB to 2D LiDAR, to 3D LiDAR. We also have more strange cases as, for example, LiDAR to LiDAR, or RGB to infrared, or to radar. Okay, so there are many works which focus on these particular problems. With regards to the hand-eye calibration problem, we also have a lot of works. For example, we have closed-form solutions, or we have iterative solutions, all of them focused only entirely on the hand-eye problem. With regards to multi-sensor, multi-modal approaches, so calibration approaches that can handle more than 2 sensors and of different modalities, we also do have some examples. So what is missing? That's the question. So what I say here is that we have indeed many calibration tools which are readily available, but the fact is that most of them, or I would say all of them, are focused on specific problems, and there is none that is able to carry out the complete calibration of all the cases that we've stated before in a general and simultaneous fashion. So nobody can, there are many solutions for this problem and that problem and the other one, but none that can have a general solution for all. And this is where we believe ATEM can make a contribution. We call it a general calibration framework because we do believe that it is a general framework that can calibrate all the cases discussed before. Okay, so let's start with a case study. We have created a system which we've called multi-model test bot or test robot. This is a system where we have a camera mounted on the end effector of a robotic manipulator, and then a tripod on the side which contains a 3D LiDAR and another camera. And this system is a sensor-to-sensor system because we want to calibrate, for example, the 3D LiDAR with a world camera. But it is also a hand-eye problem because we are also calibrating the camera which is on top of which is assembled on the manipulator's end effector. And okay, so here you can see the simulation running, and we can move the arm around, of course, to produce different images, which we will use later on for calibration, okay? So this is our case study. And what we want to highlight here is that because multi-model test bot is at the same time a multi-sensor, multi-model, sensor-to-sensor, as well as sensor-to-frame calibration problem, right now there is no solution in the literature which can conduct a complete calibration of this system, okay? So there is no one can calibrate such a system. Now, some concepts that are important for what comes next. We are going to talk about detections. So detections are data points which are selected through a labeling procedure. So for example, in an image, the detections would be the corners of the pattern that we are finding in the image. A collection C, so an image, which we refer to as a collection, will contain a set of detections. So typically we don't have a single corner, we have multiple corners of detection detected in a single image. Also, we would like to highlight that we are focusing on a multi-model approach, so our detections can be either on the image modality or on, for example, the LiDAR modality. On the right side, you can see the examples of detections for the LiDARs. So in this case, we detect these small green points as points belonging to the pattern, and the larger spheres as points which are on the edges of the pattern. So the detections will change in nature depending on the modality of the sensor. Of course, for other modalities, we can have other representations. Collections are instances in which we capture data from all sensors. So it is important to achieve accuracy that a calibration will minimize some cost over several views, not just a single view. This is typical when you are doing stereo calibration with OpenCV. You are going to show several images of to the system. And these collections are the generalization of the set of images to the set of multimodal data. We are going to store not only the raw data, but also the labels and the pose of the robot. So we are going to store all the transformations between all frames at that particular instant in time. For the MMT-Bot, the collection would contain 2 images because we have 2 cameras, a point cloud because we have a 3D LiDAR, the transformations between all the frames in that system, and the labels for all collections and all sensors. So then we have the concept of dataset. A dataset is just a set of collections. Manuel was showing a dataset before. The JSON file is a dataset. And in this case, we are representing a dataset. Here you can see the several poses of the robot for all the collections. So we've taken images of with the robot in those poses. Then we also changed the pattern, so you can see all the patterns there. And for each collection, we are going to store a set of images from the hand camera, one image from the hand camera, one from the world camera, and then some point cloud, okay? All right, so now let's start with a formulation that is common. So when we have 2 sensors only, this is what we refer to as pairwise calibration. So when we have just 2 sensors, what typically calibration approaches do is to carry out the calibration of sensor S1 with respect to sensor S2 as minimizing some expression. This expression can be something like this equation that we have here, where E is an error function or a cost function, like you are doing around optimization utils. S1, the blue part is the geometric transformation between the 2 sensors, S1 and S2. And then we also have to give some additional stuff to the function. We have to give some detections. So we have to say what are the detections on one sensor and the other. And we are going to use the contribution of all the detections, which is why we have the sum of detections. And then we also sometimes need additional information to produce an error in the cost function. And a typical example is when we are doing a projection, we also need the intrinsic parameters of the camera. So this lambda would represent additional information, additional parameters for one sensor and the other. Finally, we do this not for a single image or a single collection, but for a set of collections for the entire data set. Okay, that's why we have the yellow summatory. So this is the approach for pairwise calibrations. And the question is, okay, so how do we pick up this approach and extend it to the multi-sensor case? The classic solution for this is to run several pairwise calibrations. So for example, we would calibrate sensor 1 with respect to sensor 0, sensor 2 with respect to sensor 0, sensor 3 with respect to sensor 0, here on the left side. The question is, well, this has many problems. The first one I want to refer to is the arbitrary selection. And this refers to the fact that these choices that I've made of calibrating 1 with 0, 2 with 0, and 3 with 0 can actually be different. I can calibrate instead of this, the case in the middle, for example, sensor 0 with 2 and 2 with 3, okay? So the question becomes, this is an arbitrary selection, and is this the best choice? Should we do some other choice? If we do this choice instead of another, we also are discarding what could possibly be relevant information. So for example, in the middle, because we are calibrating from 0 to 2 and to 3, the information that we have from 0 to 3, we are discarding it. That's what the dashed line means. Another possible problem is the cumulative error. For example, in the configuration in the middle, if we are accumulating some error from 0 to 3, this error will propagate to the calibration from 2 to 3, okay? Another possible problem of these classic solutions for several pairwise calibrations. And there are also people who have attempted to pick up all the transformations and operate all of them, but this also has problems. You can see the works of Santos et al. For this. Another problem is what happens when we try to include a novel modality. This case here, in this case, represented by the new sensor radar there in red. What happens is that we have to develop a new function, a new cost function for each combination of modalities. So this starts growing and growing as you put more modalities. In this case, the fourth modality would require 3 new functions between the novel modality and all the other existing ones. So this is not also scalable in this way. So sequential pairwise calibrations could be viewed as follows. You have not just a transformation, but a set of transformations between sensor I and J. And you are going to iterate over the set of pairwise combinations of those sensors, which is this blue sum here. The disadvantages of this, we've seen them before: scalability, because we are going to have many variants for the cost function, which has to be written according to the modalities in the pair. We are going to do the arbitrary selection, as we've seen before also, and we believe that these sequential arrangements may be prone to error because of the cumulative error. So what is our proposal? Our proposed approach is to, let me check the time. I started when? Anybody knows when I started? No?
10:35, I think.
Okay, 35. So our proposal is this. We are going to estimate the pose of the calibration pattern, which we denote as W2P, so the world transformation 2 pattern, WTP. And we have many of those, that's why it's a set, because the pattern changes from collection to collection, the pose of the pattern changes. So we are going to estimate this transformation of the pattern, this position of the pattern, as well as the position of the sensors, okay? So this is our proposal. We are going to iterate over the set of sensors instead of the set of pairwise combinations of sensors. So this is a big advantage. Another advantage is that our error function now depends on the pose of a single sensor. So we lost there the transformation from sensor 1 to sensor 2. So we are focused only on a single sensor in this case. Of course that we've taken a sensor away, but we have added the position of the pattern. So this is like an extension in the sense that the problem grows because we are estimating more parameters, not just the transformation of the sensor, but the transformation of the sensors and also the transformations of the parameters. So we are enlarging the problem, but this growing is not problematic because it makes everything more simple. Another advantage is that we are worried, so because we use a single sensor, we only use the detections of a single sensor. Okay, so this is our proposal. This is inspired in the bundle adjustment solution. So now let's consider the transformation tree for the MMT-bot, our case study at the present time. So we have the world, and then we have many coordinate frames. Here the coordinate frames are the circles, and the arrows are transformations between those coordinate frames. And so we can build a tree, what we call a transformation tree or TF tree. This is a topological structure that encodes the relationships between the coordinate frames. And we can observe from this tree that this is a complex data structure. I highlight here some things. For example, we can have some portions which are just not relevant for the calibration procedure. For example, the part of the gripper there. We can have both static as well as dynamic transformations. So some of these transformations may be always the same for all collections. Some others may vary. They may be dynamic. The case of the robotic arm is obvious because it moves around. And also we can have several branches in this tree of variable depth. So this is a complex data structure. And what most authors have done in the past is to try to simplify this data structure by aggregating transformations. So in the case of the hand-eye calibration, for example, what authors typically do, most of the approaches do this, is to simplify this. This is not the example of the MMT-bot, but just of a robotic arm with a camera on top, mounted on the end effector. Authors typically use this expression AX equals EB, being A and X sets or aggregations of some transformations. For example, here you can see that A goes from end effector to base, and all this accommodates several transformations along the way, okay? So this aggregation, this simplification, we argue that is what one of the responsibles for the lack of generality of these approaches. So we argue that if we preserve the complete topological structure of transformations, we can actually generalize all calibration problems. Of course, that for that, we would need to include the coordinate systems in the topological representation. We also have to store the values of all these transformations for each collection to account for the dynamic transformations. And in this way, we can recompute whenever we need, and during the optimization procedure, the transformation between any two frames and for any collection. Because these transformations that we are going to use are not divisible, because they are indivisible, okay? So we call them atomic in the sense that we cannot divide them anymore because they are not aggregated. And represent these atomic transformations by the letter tau. Okay, so how do we compute atomic transformations, or what do we use them for? We use them to compute the transformation from any frame Fa to any frame Fb by multiplying all the atomic transformations between all the frames. So that's the initial transformation. So that's the standard geometric transformation. And if we have the topological path, which we can extract from the tree, the topological path from Fa to Fb, we can actually, using atomic transformations, compute that goal transformation. Okay, so in this case, in green you can see the atomic transformations, and you just multiply all of those. In this case, as I told you before, to account for dynamic transformations, we use the collection index there. So we've shifted from a sensor-to-sensor paradigm, which was the classical approach for solving the multi-sensor calibration, to a sensor-to-pattern paradigm, because we've taken away one of the sensors from the cost function. And in this sensor-to-pattern paradigm, what we seek is the transformation from the sensor to the pattern, which we refer here to as STP, okay? Of course, this depends on the collection, so there is a C index there as well. But this is the goal, and you can see here how we can derive the general expression from the previous slide to the concrete cases of the world camera in the MMT-Bot, or the 3D LiDAR, or the hand camera. So let's, for example, take a look at the world camera. The world camera is here. So the transformation from the world camera to the pattern would be all this route here, which you can derive from the topological, from the TF3, and then just multiply all the atomic transformations here. Now the question is, if you have this, what are you going to optimize now? And this selection is in fact arbitrary. We select just a few of these transformations to be calibrated, which are denoted in the graph in green and also in the equations with a hat. So the tau with a hat means that these transformations, these atomic transformations, are going to be estimated. Now, which ones you choose and which ones you don't choose to be estimated, it's an arbitrary, well, I would call it a conditioned arbitrary selection, because you cannot select just any of those, but you do have some freedom, okay? I will not dive into those details right now. So a new formulation of our approach would be that we are now optimizing just some atomic transformations which have been marked to be optimized. So we represent our approach as follows. And there, in the cost function, we just give the transformation between the sensor and the pattern, which is computed using the atomic transformations. And this is the expression that we propose, and that successfully generalizes all extrinsic calibration problems. In particular, those three variants that we've spoken before: sensor to sensor, sensor in motion, and sensor to frame, okay? And this is the main contribution of Atom, we believe. Now, in all these expressions, we've always talked about the cost function E without ever expliciting or telling you what exactly is this function. It depends on the modality. So right now, of course, so this is what I say here, the error function must be instantiated for each existing modality. Right now, we are working with RGB. We already have functional and actually working very well functions for RGB cameras, for 3D lidars. And for 2D lidars, this is the part where Analtino is going to work. We have done some tests before, but with Afonso, but we have never picked this up again. So we do have some stuff, but this is not working completely right now. And for depth cameras, Daniela is going to work on this. It's actually already working. Daniela, you just entered now, which is
Yes.
Exactly when I was speaking about you. So depth cameras is what Daniela is going to be working on. Now, for the RGB camera cost function, the rationale is that we have a Sharuko pattern of known dimensions, and therefore we can project the 3D corner coordinates of the Sharuko into the image. And then we evaluate the distance between the projections and the positions where we know that these projections should be because we have the detections. So for example, in the image here, you see here this red point is where we have the projection between the 3D point of the pattern corner to the image, and where it should be is there. So we just compute the distance between the red point and the red square. This is similar to the reprojection error, which is used commonly, for example, in OpenCV for stereo camera systems. But in this case, there is a nuance. We are not using the reprojection error between the projections of one camera to the other, but instead between the pattern and the sensor. So this is the definition. Perhaps I will not go into detail. Depends on the time that I have. Well, not so much into detail. So I just have the coordinates of the pattern and then put them into the coordinates of the coordinate system of the frame by multiplying the coordinates of the pattern by the transformation between the sensor and the pattern. And then with this, I can compute the projection. If I have the intrinsic and the distortion parameters K and U, I just compute the projection P. Okay, so P is the projection function. And if we are projecting, we have, so all this P will return some pixel coordinates, which then I compare with the known pixel coordinates X given by the detection, okay? Now, for the 3D LiDAR cost function, the rationale is to divide the error into two components, the orthogonal component and the longitudinal component. The orthogonal component is going to evaluate the distance between the measurements of the sensor and the plane of the pattern, the X or Y plane, so the surface of the pattern, and the longitudinal distance is going to evaluate the distance between the measurements of the sensor that we have annotated to be boundaries and the boundary of the pattern. So this will be the longitudinal component. Then our error function is just a combination of both. So for the orthogonal component, we are just going to pick up the coordinates of the detections. So these are in the local sensor reference frame. We just put them in the pattern reference frame and extract the z coordinate. And this gives us the distance between the plane and that measurement in particular. For the longitudinal component, we are going to pick up those same coordinates, transform them to the, in this case, to the sensor reference frame. No, sorry, to the patterns reference frame, because this is an inverted transformation, to the patterns reference frame, and then figure out the X and Y distance between these, let's say, transformed coordinates and any of the coordinates of the boundaries of the pattern that we know because the pattern is a known system. So we are going to extract those X and Y coordinates, and then this part is where we are searching for the closest point. Therefore, we have a minimum there. Okay, so these are two cost functions for the cases that we have more or less well solved, the RGB and the 3D LiDAR. And the question now is, how do you mix them together? Because then we will have the sum of errors produced by this cost function for the LiDAR and some other cost function for the cameras. And if you put them all together, sometimes this doesn't make sense because some functions estimate the errors in pixels, some others in meters. So how do we do this? We have to do a normalization of the residuals. We propose to compute this normalization, which we call E with a tilde on top, by multiplying this with an eta function, which is just a way of normalizing the error, the residuals, based on the modality of the sensor and on the initial value of the cost function. Okay, so this E0 is the initial error, which you are going to use to normalize everything for that particular modality. So finally, our optimization formulation is the following. We've seen that any parameter that we actually use to compute the error can be estimated by the procedure. So we don't have to estimate only transformations, but we can also estimate those additional parameters, lambda, that we also have to input. We also have to input to the error function, and therefore our view is that ATOM is not exclusively an extrinsic calibration procedure. It's a general methodology for the calibration of sensors, including intrinsic calibration. So this is our final formulation for ATOM. We are going to minimize the selected atomic transformations, and also some additional parameters that have been selected for being estimated as well. Okay. Okay, so until now we have presented a novel approach for conducting the calibration of robotic systems. This approach is based on the optimization of atomic transformations, and we have formulated the problem of calibration as an optimization problem where we estimate the geometric transformations between the sensors. So this is what I have presented so far. The question now is this that I have here. Is that all you need to do a calibration? There is nothing else that is required? From a theoretical standpoint, yes, this is the core component, but in fact, in practice, we have several other things which can be seen as smaller or minor, but they are actually also required. Problems like how do you collect the data from the sensors? How do you define the topology of the transformations? How do you define the initial pose? If this is an optimization, the initial guess for the parameters is very important. How do you visualize what's happening? How do you evaluate after you calibrate? All these are problems that are very relevant from at least from the practical standpoint when you are doing a calibration. And to solve this, we propose this framework architecture in which we have some external modules. So before this, we would like to, the key point here is that we are going to do a complete integration with ROS, Robot Operating System. So we are going to use as much as we can of ROS as it's possible, because the integration should be as seamless as possible. So external modules, we have the robotic systems configuration here on the top, and then the data logging also. These are external models. What we mean by external is that these are not supposed to be done just because of ATOM. If you are doing a robotic system in ROS, you are also going to do this kind of stuff. Then we have the ATOM modules, which are the calibration configuration, initial positioning of sensors, and so on and so forth. So for the robotic system configuration, what we need is a description of the robot. And this is what defines the topology in the TF3. So this is a ROS standard to use an URDF to define the kinematics, dynamics, metadata. And the URDF was invented or was intended to be a format that is both readable and writable by humans and machines as well. Okay, so to try to facilitate the editing between a human from a human. And this is, again, not just for ATOM. You can use it for robot visualization, collision detection, and so on and so forth. If you use ROS, you know what I'm talking about. Data logging. So for data logging, we are going to record sensor data and transformations in a typical ROS bag file. okay? And with this, we have the ability to process the data offline. Our system will also work with online processing, but it's much easier to just record a session of data and then go to the lab and process this stuff offline. So because we are doing an optimization, it is very important to define reasonable or plausible values for the initial values for the parameters that we are going to optimize. As I say there, these initial values are determinant for the outcome of the optimization. And in fact, if you rely on the URTF, this typically is done using some tape measure or something like this. So these values are often inaccurate, so you cannot really rely on them. What we propose is an interactive tool which allows you to reposition the sensors and to have some kind of visual feedback while doing so. In particular, visual feedback for the spatial arrangement of the 3D models in the system and also the data between the sensors. And this allows the user to generate a plausible first guess, which then the optimization can take in, okay? An example here, you can see on the left, the 3D LiDAR is completely off, away from the place where it should be, on top of the bar. And therefore, for example, you can already see it's not correct because you see the body of the 3D LiDAR not in the place where it should be. So this is the visual clue of looking at the 3D models of the components of the system. But also you can take a look and see that the data also doesn't align well if the LiDAR is not in the proper place. Whereas in this case on the right, there has been some care in positioning the LiDAR, and you can see the alignment is almost perfect already, okay? The alignment between the 3D points and the image in this case, but it can be some other kinds of alignment. Well, let's take a look at the initial positioning of sensors. Well, actually, I can call YouTube, it's easier because this starts from the position I want. Okay, so here you can see a 3D LiDAR being positioned. While you are putting the LiDAR in the proper place, you can try to do several stuff. For example, here I'm trying to figure out the alignment between the 3D points and the table. So I just rotate the LiDAR to make it more or less well aligned. This doesn't have to be perfect, of course, because the optimization will then carry on to get the best fitting possible, but it does solve the problem of starting very far away from the optimal solution and falling into a local minimum, as Manel and Altino were having in the 2D LiDARs. Okay, so here the robot is moving around because the collection said so, and we are going to move some other stuff I can show you. For example, here we can also see the images, and if we move the camera around, then we will have projections. I'm not sure what I did now. I don't remember the video. Here. So here we are moving the camera around. Okay. Okay. We move the camera around and try to come up with a better first guess. All right. So here you can see that the alignment should be better now. Okay. You see there, the alignment is getting better. Okay. So this is a very powerful tool, we believe, to allow the user to, okay, where is my, I think I lost my, no, here. To allow the user to define the initial position of the sensors. Now, for the data collection and labeling, what we want is to produce what we call an atom data set, and this will take in the robot description, either updated from the initial position of sensors or just the initial stuff, and also a calibration file from the initial configuration, so, which defines how the calibration is going to carry on. So data collection and labeling creates a data set, and what happens is that we are observing the playback of data and deciding when we want to take a collection, to store a collection. So for example, in this case, you can see here the MMTBot system moving around. Here now we are not positioning the sensors anymore. we are just deciding, okay, this is a good time to save a collection. For this, we need to label the data. The labeling in the image is automatic, but in the LiDAR requires an initialization from the user. And the user will do so by moving this marker here on top of the pattern, of the 3D points of the pattern. So you can see there. And now I'm going to try to put this marker on top of the pattern. Okay. Okay, now this is a tracking procedure. So now we have a good labeling of the 3D LiDAR and we can start some collections, okay? So this is what we call a semi-automatic labeling procedure for 3D LiDAR data. Daniela now is working on a labeling procedure, hopefully fully automatic, but if not, okay, let it be semi-automatic for depth data. And now we just select when we want to save some data. For example, we save a collection and we can save as many collections as we want, okay? Okay, now, for the calibration, what we propose is to, unlike most of the calibrations that we know, which only print some numbers to the terminal and nobody knows what these numbers mean. Oh, okay, we know what they mean, but this is not intuitive to figure out if whether or not the calibration is actually working. We want to use the ROS ecosystem to be able to visualize all the collections and the sensor data and the ground truth sensor poses and where the optimization is at any given time, so the current solution. And this is a straightforward integration also because by the end, we produce a new RDF which can just be plugged in into your ROS robotic system. So some examples. Here you can see an optimization for the MMT-Bot. You can see where initially the LiDAR and the cameras are very far away from the solution. And you also see that the data points from the LiDARs are not aligned with the patterns. When we start moving this around, so after some time, you have a better solution where you have a better alignment and the sensors are actually closer to the correct position. In the end, you have a good, yeah, in the end, you have a good, well, wait, just, sorry, let me go. YouTube is better because it takes me directly to the place I want to show. Okay, so you can see here that we are going to start optimizing and the system is optimizing. So it's moving the sensors and it's also moving the patterns because remember, we've extended the optimization problem to also include the transformation, the poses of the patterns. So this is converging to the correct solution where the LiDAR and the camera and also the camera there are correctly positioned. And you see the alignments are much better. Where is my, I always lose my PDF. Okay, here. Now for the results, we are going to show results with several robotic platforms because what we want to convince you of is that Atom is general, so it can calibrate several robotic systems with different variants of calibration problems. So with MMT-Bot, we've already shown you the results. Now we're going to show Atlas Car, Agrob, and Iris UR10E, which are different systems. So Atlas Car is an autonomous car vehicle. Agrob is an AGV intended for agricultural applications. And Iris is a system which we developed just to test several variants of the end-eye calibration problem, okay? So how do we set the initial estimate on the Atlas Car? Like this. We just move the sensors around and we can see the 2D LiDAR data. In this case, these are 2D LiDARs, okay? So you see here, Manel and Altino, what you were doing before, trying to figure out if this is going to fit properly or not. What we did this morning is much better to do like this, no? Much easier. Okay. For the labeling stuff, we have a similar mechanism where we drag these markers on top of where we know the pattern is, and then it just carry on tracking it. So for example, now we are saying this is going to be a corner somewhere in the officinas, in the laboratory. And now we say, oh, okay, so track this part. So the system will just know that these components here are the pattern. This is the labels. These are the labels. For the Agrov, a very similar procedure. We are just going to do something, in this case, similar to the MMTBot, because the Agrov has a 3D LiDAR. So we are just tracking around and saving the collections when we want. So the ARIES UR10E, it's the same. We just, in this case, we have a single sensor, which is a camera. We just have to define where the camera is by moving it around. And this is, once again, this is not, this doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be more or less in the proper place, in a plausible place, so that we don't fall into local minima. Some collection of data, I don't think it's needed. So I told you that we've explored several variants within the hand-eye calibration. So this is another variant, which we call eye to base. So this is when the camera is not mounted on the robot, but is actually outside the robot. And what we want is to figure out where the camera is with respect to the base of the robot. In this case, we put a pattern on the hand of the robot and put the camera looking at the pattern. Okay. So this is the eye to base example. And then we have a third variant of the hand-eye calibration problem, where we have both a camera outside the arm and the camera mounted on the arm. So we have also, this problem is not solvable by anyone other than Atom. This we call the joint hand base case. And we have to move the chassis board around, like we are doing here, and also the arm around. Okay. So here we are just positioning the sensors, setting the initial estimate. Okay, so data sets for results. We have the MMTBot, Atlas Card 2, Agrov, and Iris. We have, as you can see, different sensors and modalities in these different systems. And we have several data sets because typically we train with a data set and we test with the other. Similar to machine learning, to deep learning and this kind of stuff. We don't want to train with one data set and then provide the results with the same data set in which we've trained. That wouldn't be fair, let's say. So for evaluation metrics, this is another problem because since Atom is the only system that we know that can compute or calibrate a system with several sensors, how can we compare with other systems which cannot do this? So this comparison is not possible. So we've come up with a way to compare in which Atom calibrates the entire system, but then we only evaluate against pairwise evaluations. So let's say Atom will calibrate 2 cameras and a LiDAR, but then when we go to the evaluation part, we are going to evaluate just the first camera with the second camera, and then the first camera with the LiDAR, and then the second camera with the LiDAR. So we do pairwise evaluations. And this is interesting because it allows us then to compare Atom with other approaches which have carried out the pairwise which is being evaluated, the calibration of that particular pairwise and not the complete system. So in this sense, all these numbers that you are going to see next are being taken from a disadvantageous standpoint for Atom, because while Atom is calibrating the complete system and then being evaluated for a single pair, the other approaches are going to be to calibrate just that pair and then being evaluated just for that same pair, okay? Okay, continuing. So for the evaluation metrics, we use standard reprojection between 2 cameras for RGB to RGB. I will not go into the details here because I don't have enough time. The idea is to project one pixel, the detections from one of the cameras to the image of the other camera, and then to figure out the difference between the detected pixels of one camera projected to the other place and the detections on the other place. This is standard. Then we've come up with a new evaluation metric for LiDAR to RGB cameras. So for this particular pairwise, what we do is we measure the difference between the red points there, which are labeled directly in the image. So we have a user annotating these red lines here. And these red lines are where the pattern, where the physical boundaries of the pattern are, okay? So this is manual annotation. And then we compare this against the projections of the LiDAR measurements onto the image, which are the blue points there. So for each of those blue points there in the image, you have to compute the distance to all the points in the red lines and take the smallest one, which is represented by the yellow line there in the image, okay? So with this, we can have an idea whether or not the LiDAR and the camera are well aligned. So this is an evaluation metric for this combination of modalities. So although this is also a reprojection error, it is not a camera-to-camera reprojection error. So you cannot directly say, use your common sense for reprojection errors between cameras to say, okay, this is smaller than 1, this is a nice sub-pixel accuracy. It's not the same because these are not, there is a LiDAR modality here in play. Okay, finally, RGB to RGB camera evaluation. We have several metrics. In particular, we are going to focus on the one which is on the right. We've compared this against OpenCV, which only works if all the corners are detected. So if the pattern is somehow occluded, it doesn't work. And the cameras cannot move. So OpenCV only works for the stereo calibration algorithm for static cameras. So the conclusion is that we can achieve similar accuracies with respect to OpenCV. So we are not very far away from OpenCV, while we are still calibrating the complete system and not just the pair which is being evaluated. And moreover, more important than that, is that our system can calibrate a lot of stuff that OpenCV just cannot, okay? So there are many cases here by one or another reason which OpenCV cannot tackle and that Atom can tackle accurately. For LiDAR to RGB evaluation, we can see in general that the errors are higher than RGB to RGB evaluations. But as I told you before, this cannot be, this is not an apples to apples comparison, so don't do that comparison. And what we can say is that we've compared here Atom with Atom pairwise, which is a calibration which would only take the pair which is being evaluated. And we can see that we don't lose accuracy by calibrating the complete system instead of calibrating just the pair that is being evaluated. And this is a very interesting conclusion because it allows us to say that this is an advantage over sequential pairwise systems. So we do a single calibration and we have similar accuracy to other approaches which are going to do many different calibrations, then try to put them together in some strange fashion, as we studied before. Okay, calibrations. I'm going to skip the Atlas card because we don't have enough time. I'm just going to show you first the calibration of Agrov. Okay, so you start with, so it is already optimizing, so you can see stuff, when I say stuff, I mean the part of the position of the patterns and also the position of the sensors, and because of that, the measurements of those sensors. So these colored spheres are changing in order to get a good alignment. So this is already a good alignment, okay? Now, for the WAR10E, we have the eye in hand case. Again, sorry, let me, it's better with you too. Well, I said better. Okay, so here you can see the system running and the camera being positioned as well as the pattern. The pattern is also moving. And in the end, you get a almost perfect calibration. Here is an interesting result. So here what we are seeing is a visualization of the image that we are taking overlaid with where the system thinks the 3D model is. And you can see here that the alignment between where the 3D model is supposed to be and where it actually is on the image is very different when you don't have a good calibration. When you have a good calibration, the alignment is perfect. Okay. So this is nice because the camera is observing the system itself, and it's, so for example, here you can see there is a big difference here, whereas here in the calibration it's perfect. Okay, for the I2Base case, I'm going to show you the calibration. It's quite fast. Okay, so it converged to the proper place. And then we can also have the same kind of result where we can see the alignment. Here, I'm not sure it's easy to see the alignment. When I notice okay, here. So here you can see a big difference between where the model should be and where it actually is in the image, whereas here it's perfectly aligned once again. Okay. Now, we also have the other more difficult case, which is the joint end base or joint end eye. So here it's more difficult because we are optimizing more parameters. We have the world camera there, and then the hand cameras, and then all the patterns in different places. So the system takes longer to converge, but in the end, it's going to converge to a very satisfactory solution. Okay. Now, we've also run several experiments where we try to evaluate how different components of the system of Atom will influence the outcome of the calibration. In this particular case, we are going to study the number of the influence of the number of partial detections into the accuracy of the calibration. So a partial detection is a detection of a partially occluded calibration pattern. For example, here in this when the robot was holding the pattern, the robot was occluding some portions of the corners, and we can still detect the pattern, but does it affect the outcome of the calibration? That's the question. So the experiment will take on more and more partial detections, and let's see, and we take a look at the influence in the error. So with regards to cameras, RGB to RGB evaluations, we almost see no difference. It's always sub-pixel accuracy, so the differences are minimal, I would say. So we don't have any kind of influence of partial detections. With LiDAR, it's a bit more sensitive to partial detections. However, we can say that even when you are doing a challenging data set, for example, when we have almost half of detections partial, we can still have a very small loss of accuracy of almost under 1 pixel of reprojection error, okay? So we would say that Atom is more or less resilient to partial detections. The other experiment was to study the effect of incomplete collections. An incomplete collection is a case where, for a given collection, you have many sensors in the system, and some of the sensors in the system were able to label the pattern, and some others were not able to label the pattern. So what will happen if, for example, for two cameras and a LiDAR, one of the cameras does not see the pattern, but the other two do? Again, we have run the experiments with increasing amounts of incomplete collections, and we can see that there is no evidence in the numbers which shows us that the incomplete collections will significantly disrupt the accuracy of the calibration, which is again a very good sign because it shows Atom is very resilient and robust. So Atom will tackle incomplete collections in an accurate way, and bear in mind that the other approaches, because they use the sensor-to-sensor paradigm, they didn't even work in these cases of incomplete collections because they used cost functions where the detections of two sensors were required. When one of the sensors did not detect, they didn't even work, okay? So another thing we've tried was to variate the quality of the initial guess and to see how Atom was robust to a bad quality in the initial guess. So we've changed the distance and also the angle of the pose of the sensors and tried to figure out if the calibration was able to even then result in a smaller error. All this valley here that you can see, which is more or less between 0 and 0.7 in distance and 0 and 15 degrees in angle, will show us that actually Atom is very robust to a bad initial guess. And this validates, in our opinion, the idea that we can expect an user to consistently put the sensor in a pose which should be below 0.7 meters and 15 degrees. And therefore, this, in our opinion, validates the proposal of using an interactive approach to produce initial estimates. Now, time, we can say that overall, even in the worst case scenarios, we take under 200 seconds, which is nothing for a one-shot procedure, but typically we take much less. Okay, so this is the laboratory. So now I'm going to tell you about some ongoing projects, and sorry for being late, I have to hurry up. So for some ongoing projects, in this case, LARCC is a collaborative cell which is being developed on the laboratory of automation and robotics. In this case, we have several sensors mounted on this structure, and then a robotic arm in the middle. And this is a very dangerous place. This is a prototype, and that's the reason why we only send PhD students inside. Okay, they can take the chance, not us. So you can see here Daniela and Afonso. And so, setting initial estimate. This is the work of Daniela, not the current one, the past one. So here she is setting the initial estimate for the LARCC. You can see the LARCC is a challenge because it contains many sensors. So we have 3 velolines. In this case, she was doing it only with 2 velolines, I believe, and 1 camera, but still it was challenging. Okay, so you can see that we are just looking at the data and trying to move the sensors around. And here the collection of data. Okay, there she is labeling the data, and then she will take some collections. Okay. Next, we can show you LARCC being calibrated. These are the initial results from Daniela. Me and Daniela were very happy when these results, when we saw these results. I celebrated like, yoo-hoo, hurrah! And she said, nice, like this. No, Daniela. Because she's not very expensive. This is my joke. So you can see there, this alignment will become better over time. Yeah, I think the system is now optimizing. You can see that we use many collections now to produce accurate calibrations. And we know here we have, this is with real data or with simulated data, Daniela?
I don't know.
You don't know? This is your video. I don't remember now. Okay, so this is getting better. Not perfect, but better, this calibration.
No, that's real calibration.
Okay. And another ongoing project, which is where Manel and Analtino are going to work, but they still don't know, is what I call SoftBot, Sensor to Odometry Frame Test Robot. So there is another variant of calibration where we put sensors on top of a moving robot, for example, the Atlas car or something, and then we want to figure out where these sensors are with respect to the reference frame of the motion model of the vehicle. A simple example that I give is what about when I put a camera on top of the Atlas car and then I ask someone to detect the road. So this person will do a fantastic algorithm which will always pick up the road, no problem. So I will know where the road is in the image. But if I don't know where the camera is with respect to the car, then I don't know where the road is with respect to the car, so I don't know where to turn. So the calibration of the sensors with respect to what I call the odometry frame is also an important problem. And my conviction is that Atom also solves this problem. How? How do I know this? Because I've tested before I gave this work to Manuel and Analtino, I did some tests. So I did this SoftBot and I collected some data. Okay, so I just moved a TurtleBot around with this is a very expensive TurtleBot with a Veloline on top and several cameras, but this is just simulated, so no problem. And the goal is that Analtino can do this. Of course, this needs to be improved, but Analtino can do this in a TurtleBot, in a real TurtleBot, and that Manel does this in the Atlas car. Okay, so I just move the robot around and I take several images, and this is an Atom dataset. In this case, it's not the robot arm that is moving, it's the robot itself. And then we just try to calibrate without changing any code in Atom. And this is what happens. Okay, so it is able to find a solution for the position of the sensors with respect to all of between themselves and the odometry frame of the robot. So when I saw these results, I was also very happy because this is another example of generalization of Atom. So finally, for final remarks, we've presented a general calibration methodology based on the optimization of atomic transformations. We formulate the problem as an extended optimization problem where we not only optimize the pose of the sensors, but also of the patterns of calibration. This extension of the will actually simplify the cost functions because we write them in a sensor to pattern paradigm. This approach of ours, Atom, is able to calibrate sensor to sensor, sensor in motion, and sensor to frame problems, tackle any number of sensors and several modalities. And therefore, more than that, we've also provided several tools for collecting data, setting the initial estimate, and so on and so forth, which makes Atom not only a methodology, but also a calibration framework. We've shown in the results that we achieve similar accuracies when compared to other methods. So these are the persons which have worked in Atom so far. So I would like to acknowledge their work. And also, if you want to learn more, you have some publications there. So to finalize, thank you. And if you are interested, please take a look at the GitHub page and start using it if you want.